Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Mentorship Facebook Live. My name is Sonia Cato Howard. I am partnering up with Kimmy McNeese, aka K Mac, and together we are doing Women. We help women to live happy, healthy, and hopeful. You can catch me here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Sorry, last Wednesday I was in a fabulous meeting for tiny houses and I couldn't get here. And Kimmy every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Tonight, I want to talk about daddy issues. You know, because we all have them. Many of us grew up in homes without daddies, or we had a bad example of what a good daddy should be. And this absence of a daddy has had consequences on us. As women, we are looking for men to love us. We feel inadequate because we didn't have a daddy that showed us how to be loved, and that told us that we were beautiful. And because we did not have a healthy example of a daddy and how he treated mom, we let anyone date us and marry us. So, by the way, happy belated Father's Day for any fathers that are watching this message. But this past Father's Day, I was reminded of my relationship with my father. I've mentioned to you before the story of my father, but I'm going to do a recap tonight for the sake of this message. So the only thing that I really know about my father upbringing is that his father used to beat his mom, his wife, so my dad's mom. He used to beat her, and he used to beat her really bad. That's really all I know about my father's upbringing. And so when my father pursued my mom, she was in school, she was 15 years old, and my mom had to walk up a dirt road a couple of miles to get to school every day. And so my dad had a car, and every day he would drive by and offer her a ride. And so my mom would always say no, but at some point she, started thinking that ride was a good idea, so she took a ride from him. And then it wasn't long before he expected sex in exchange for the ride that he was giving her. And it wasn't very long after that my mom found herself pregnant with me. And so my dad did offer to marry my mom, and she had a lot of pressure from her family saying that, this is a good catch, this guy has a car, you need to marry him. But my mom really did not like my dad. But because she had so much pressure from her mom, she went on to marry him. Well, it didn't take long before my dad was beating my mom really bad and all the time. And my mom got up enough nerve to leave about a year into the marriage. And at this point, I was about 1, and she moved in with a friend. At some point, my dad won a lawsuit, and he didn't want to pay the lawyers. So he skipped town and moved to New York. And so at this time, I was around 2. And so over the years, my dad would always call me, I ain't going to say always. He would call me at least 3 times out of the year. And he was always tell me that he loved me. My dad always sent money for my birthdays, Christmas, and then for school. And out of the time of me growing up, I saw my dad twice. I saw him when I was 7 years old, and then I saw him again when I was 12. And during those times, he showered me with a lot of gifts, and he told me that he loved me. So when I turned 18 and I was in the Navy, I decided to go and visit my dad. And I don't care what I tried, my dad refused to give me his address. He did not want me to come and see him. And this made me very angry, and I started hating my father. And that's when I remembered every bad thing my mom had said about him. And I began to believe what she said. And so I really couldn't understand that he really had no desire to know me or my family once I got married and had a baby. So over the years, I heard a message in church about forgiveness. And so I decided to pray and ask God to help me, because I didn't realize, I've talked about this topic a lot with you guys, how bad forgiveness was and how it can fester in you. So I asked God to help me to forgive my dad. And so I did. I forgave him. And then my prayers turned into, hey, God, it would be cool to really meet my father because I don't really know my father. And so after praying this for 2 years, one day my dad showed up on my birthday. And that night I took him out to dinner and I grilled him because I wanted to know, why did he leave me? Did he ever really love me? Why didn't he want me to visit him? And that night, my dad answered all of my questions, and he really expressed his love for me. And I got exactly what I needed, and I felt whole. And for the men that are listening to this, it is very important for women, for girls and women to know that their fathers love them. That's like very, very important. So if you have a daughter that you're not speaking to, please call her. So my dad did love me, but he didn't know how to be a good father. And unfortunately, in the next 2 years to come, I discovered just how bad of a person that he was. My dad used prostitutes, and not just for sex. He used them to do all kind of evil, illegal things. My dad cursed his mom. Like a dog, right in front of me. Like she was 70 at the time. My grandmother's 90 something now, and she was 70 something at the time. And he cursed her like a dog right in front of me. Well, I had seen his brother do the same thing to women. My dad even tried to burn down my grandmother's house for the insurance money. And he believed in putting roots and spells on people. So when he did die, we found all this stuff around the house where he was trying to put roots on grandma. And he even tried to give her a heart attack. He would try to increase her blood pressure by upsetting her all the time. And so this was the person that I was happy did not raise me at this point, getting to know me. I was happy that he was not in my life all those years. And I actually discovered that I was the best part of him. So after thinking about this past Father's Day, about my relationship with my father, I also thought about my girls' relationships with their fathers. And I wondered if they would call them and wish them happy Father's Day. Because see, both of my girls, my natural born girls, had told me that I no longer needed to be worried about that relationship. That they would call their fathers if they wanted to. And that I didn't need to worry about that or remind them. So it just kind of crossed my mind, would they call their fathers? And just like my father abandoned me when I was 2, that unfortunate history repeated itself. So my first ex-husband, he left when my daughter was 2. And my youngest daughter, her dad abandoned her by the time she was 2. And even my adopted girls' fathers, they don't even know them. Even though these are my relatives, I adopted relatives, and they don't even know their fathers. And their mother refused to give them their fathers' names or tell them who they are. So, why do you think many fathers leave their daughters and sons? Well, I have a theory. So, during slavery, many fathers were sold separate from their families. They were separated from their families. So, the father was sold to this, person. The mother was sold to a different family, and then each child was divided up. And I think they said they did it on purpose like that. And so after slavery, many fathers never found their families. And many of the fathers, of course, were killed. So during segregation, after slavery, many of the fathers went north to look for work. And their children learned to live without a father. And then some fathers never came back for their families. And many of the fathers made new families. And so that's the reason why they never went back to live. So by the end of the segregation period, the black family was all broken. There were fathers that were in jail because many of them were in there for crimes that they did not commit and many other injustices. Today, when you look at the History Channel, you always see some person that spent 30 something years in jail, 50 something years in jail for something that they never did. A lot of the fathers were out of work, and a lot of the mothers were working several jobs and not at home raising the children. A lot of times you see on TV, some guy will say that, yes, I don't know my father. My mom was working all the time, and so I turned to the gangs. You hear that all the time. So these boys grew up without fathers, and they never saw a good father in the home. They never saw a father loving a mom the right way, and they never saw a father being loving daughters in a healthy way. And so this was their norm. So today we have men who don't know how to be fathers. And their norm is to basically have sex with every woman that they can get. And then when they get the woman pregnant, they convince her to abort her baby. Now, mind you, God says that your baby is a gift to you. It's your seed. Your seed that you can do anything with. You can point this seed to anything. You can change the world with your kid. And so this child would give you purpose in life. That's why God gave you babies. But these guys would tell these girls, would convince these women to abort their babies. And the women that did not abort their babies, the men would abandon the babies. And guess what? That's because that's what their fathers did to them. So they haven't actually seen anything else. That's all they've ever seen. And so this is their norm. Not to build a family, right? Not to get with the girl who you got pregnant and build a family with her, but to get with every single woman that you can. This is their norm. So, back in the Bible days, there was a concubine. And concubine is a woman that you did not marry, but you slept with her. So that means if you defiled a woman, you basically had to take care of her for the rest of her life. And King David had 7 wives and 300 concubines. And that's because he could afford 300 concubines. However, Caleb, who was a tent maker, only had 2 wives and 2 concubines. And I'm sure because he could only afford that, right? So if guys today had to take care of every single woman that they slept with, trust me, there would not be a whole bunch of them. And also you wouldn't have single moms, because these guys who slept with these women and got them pregnant would have to take care of them. And you also wouldn't have a bunch of hurt women around here because guys are using them for sex. But I will digress. We are not in the Bible days. And, we don't want to go back to that because women didn't have any rights back then. So how does all of this affect us as women? In a big way. I'll tell you how. So did you know that 24,000 women are infertile because of STDs? This is a recent statistics. We make bad decisions on who we date. We settle for guys who don't want to commit to us. They don't want to have intimacy with us. And they don't want to love us. We allow guys to use our bodies for their sexual pleasures. And as they move on from woman to woman. And then we nourish these men, because that's what sex does to us. It makes us care for you. It makes us let them come in, to our hearts. And then we start planning things with them. But these are not our husbands. We drink too much. And we put ourselves in positions to be taken advantage of. We trust strangers as we lie down with them, and we give them a piece of our soul. We use bad judgment to get with guys just based on how they look. We deal with guys who don't respect us or don't even want to understand us. We tolerate guys who are doing things that we don't like, and then we make excuses for them. We use sex to cover up our pain. We have the same negative things that happen in every relationship, but we're not learning from the past. We take risks that will get us pregnant and make us contract sexual diseases. So by not having a loving father in our lives, we are suffering a great deal. So even though our daddies are not around, or were not around while we were growing up, we don't have to act like we have daddy issues. With God's help, we can act like we are the beautiful gift that God made us to be. You see, we are the gift. Guys need us. We're the ones that nourish them and take care of them and give them babies and turn their house into a home. We are worthy to be loved. And God is our Father in heaven, even when our earthly father abandoned us. We do deserve to be loved. We can utilize self-control over our bodies. We can make better decisions about who we date. We can date men who qualify, men who put us first, men who appreciate us, men who have good character, intelligence, values, spirituality, and self-esteem. We can take our time to be courted so that we can understand a man's mind, heart, and spirit. We can become our best self so that men will see our worth. We can wait for the man that will commit to us, someone that will respect us. We can control our bodies to ensure that we don't end up with unwanted pregnancies, diseases, and broken hearts. Why can we do this? Because we are uniquely and wonderfully created by God to be loved. And if you are one of these women with daddy issues, you can choose not to be. You can ask God for help with this. You can get on the right path and turn your life around. You can with God's help, because you are loved, and we do deserve to be loved. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this bless your heart. Share it and I like it, and catch Kimmy tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Thanks.